What's up, horror community? I'm Stock, and today's video, it's the first of the year. It's the first 2023 Horror 31st video, and I'm actually filming this on January 1st, so it is the legit first day of the year, and we're kicking it off with me going back to 2022, and I'm going to be talking about my top 3 favorite horror movies from 2022. So, after much debate, ranking in at number 3 is the horror movie X, and this was one of the most popular horror movies from 2022. It was one of the most talked about ones. I gave it a go and I credited it on all cylinders. I thought it was fantastic, and I also credit it because me personally, I'm not really a new horror movie type of fan, especially when it's a completely new idea, and I just think a lot of the time it's a miss. It's like nothing nearly close to like classic horror, not nearly as good, but this horror movie, guys, I thought was really good. First of all, they did such an awesome job because the story of X, and it's a very unique story, but it takes place in the 70s, Texas in the 70s, and they did such a good job at making this movie feel old and make it feel like it's from the 70s. I actually got a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes from this movie, and I thought they really brought that to the screen really well. I feel like so much of the time, a lot of new horrors can try to do that, like they try to do a flashback, or they try to make the movie based off like an older time frame, like 70s, 80s, and it just comes off cheesy, comes off corny, doesn't look good, takes you out of the movie. But with X, in my personal preference, I thought it was just perfect. I thought they did it so well, and in so many moments while I was watching it, I'm like, am I watching an old movie? Am I watching an old horror, like old classic horror movie? Like I really truly felt that way. So something very eye-opening about this movie, I gotta talk about briefly, because it's not a review, but I gotta briefly talk about the story of X. And the main story of it is this group of young individuals, and they're going to this kind of quiet, abandoned type place to rent out in the 70s, in Texas in the 70s, and they're renting it out from this elderly couple, and what they're renting it out for, this young group of people, is to film a porno. And that is right off the bat just very interesting, and big parts of me, I'm not gonna lie, big parts of me was like, I don't think this is for me. This is gonna be completely corny, or just it's not gonna be good, it's not gonna be a good story, it's gonna completely miss for me. I don't think I'm gonna check it out, but I'm happy I did, and I'm happy I listened to all the people talking about it online, because I personally feel like everything they did around this story and with everything, every piece of the puzzle to make this movie happen, I thought was just excellent. With a good horror movie, or a good movie in general, you gotta have a strong cast of characters. You gotta have a good group of characters that you can go on this ride with, that you can go on this story with, and what X has is they definitely have that. Everyone in that group, in that main group that does the filming, none of them are boring, none of them are unrememberable. I remember every single one of them, actually, and that's very impressive to do, because a lot of movies miss that. A lot of movies kind of, they'll have their main characters and everyone else is kind of whatever. This movie, I think everyone played their part. I think everyone had a big important piece of this group that has to try to survive throughout the movie. I thought all of them were just really good. It's just a very unique cast of characters. They're just all different in their own ways, which make them memorable for me. And you have like unique people portraying the performances. You have one of the biggest actresses in horror today. You had Jenna Ortega in that movie, and then you also have, like, for example, you have someone like a rapper like Kid Cudi, who plays one of the characters in this group, and even he was just fantastic in this movie. He was great. Just everyone, all the performances, all the characters in this movie, really good. Also, something I credit this movie on is its creepiness, and they just had an old couple as the main killers throughout this film, and they just did the creepiness stuff with those two characters, especially the old lady, really well. Uncomfortable, creepiness, just scariness in general, and just a mixture of emotions to why it makes you feel uncomfortable, why it's creepy. The blood and the kills throughout this movie were pretty eye-opening, and what very much separates this movie from me is just the camera angles and the camera shots and the music and just the way the movie was shot. I think that's what really kind of won me on this, is because of just, like I said earlier, how much it made itself feel like an old school movie. And I think that's why it holds a place here, and it holds a place so high tier for me for 2022. It's because of that. Last thing I'll talk about X is actually my favorite scene in the movie, and it's a smaller scene in the grand scheme of things, but it really stood out to me. It really stuck in my memory after I saw it, and it's when the main group of characters that are doing the filming, they're all huddled up together, and one of the girls in the group starts singing a famous song. The song's called Landslide, and she sings this song, and while the camera pans around the room, and just this group of people, this group of friends are just has like these smiles on their faces and these positive vibes, and it's just a very happy, good feeling moment that you wouldn't expect from this story of this movie. You wouldn't expect a scene like this to hit, but it does. And it hits even harder because after this scene, or shortly after, is when they kind of start domino affecting and getting killed off one by one. So this scene was great on its own, and then even the aftermath of seeing what happens after this scene, so good. And also because I didn't expect a scene like this to happen in this movie. So that's my favorite scene, and that's why X is my number 3. Still haven't seen the movie Pearl, by the way. I know it's the sequel to this movie, I believe, but the story of it is actually like a prequel of X's story, so I still have to see that. I heard good things about it. I still have to check that out. Coming in at number 2 is none other than Terrifier 2. And this movie had so much hype going into it. It had so much build-up, not just for me, but for horror fans in general, from the original movie in 2016, and how much everybody loved that small film that kind of gained its popularity and gained a following. And Terrifier 2 got pushed back so many times because of all the craziness in the world, and just the release date kept getting set back, but we finally got it in 2022, and let me tell you, it was worth it. So I had so much excitement going into this movie. I'm such a big Art the Clown fan. I'm such a big Terrifier fan. I was so high on Terrifier 1, saw it several times over, and I was going into this like, it has to live up to it. So I had so much expectations. Try to moderate it in ways, but I was pretty confident this was going to deliver. And like I said, it did. And it did Art the Clown so well, because he's already so well done in the first one, which got everyone's eyes on who this character is. But Terrifier 2, in a lot of ways, took him from the first one and like enhanced that. Just like put that on steroids and just gave you so much more of him without explaining the mystery of him. But at the same time, gave us a lot more of him. So it was a great balance. The kills and the special effects they use continue to be amazing. They didn't ruin this and give you some CGI killings with art that were just not fun to look at, that didn't look good. They continued to do what they did with the first one and made them look great. If anything, these kills were like way more detailed even and gruesome. I still have my favorite kill in the first one with the hacksaw down, the classic kill, but 2 did supply us with so many good ones. Art really is just one of the only killers that I could watch go that nuts on his kills, and that much blood and that much brutality throughout. He really is, I think, the only one that I'm down to watch that craziness go down because of just how he is. So Art continued to be great on every single aspect about him, which made him great in the first one. If anything, the second one gave us more of that. So there was just no negative in that field. But what Terrifier 2 did very differently was they gave us a story here, because the first one didn't really have a story, which I didn't mind. I love the first one so much for what it is. I love how the first one is just this random clown on a random night with some random people doing the killings, and just you watching this creepy freaking clown do what he does. I love that for the first one. But what they did with the second was that story. They gave you a main final girl, they gave you her family, they gave you kind of a background on who these characters are. And that was what you needed in a sequel for Terrifier. That's what you needed for this series to continue into a franchise, because I think there's a Terrifier 3 like already announced, especially with how well this movie did. Terrifier 2, like Terrifier 1 had its fan base, but Terrifier 2, and I know it was in theaters, so it's different, but God, that has everyone in the horror community talking about Terrifier 2. And it's just that story. It was very cool to see Art have a final girl this time to battle against and like kind of be even in a lot of ways. They kind of gave her like a supernatural element. I won't dive into it too deep in this video, but they gave her a supernatural element. art is very supernatural as we know it from the first, but you see that even more in the second. And there was a group of people that are kind of don't like that, like, oh, supernatural final, it's a little too. For me, I think it works great for Terrifier. Like, I'm fine with it. At first I was a little confused, but as time went on, like, I'm so down for it. I'm so down for these possibilities that could carry into Terrifier 3. They also introduced a new clown in this movie, this little girl clown, who's creepy as hell too, who has a creepy smile to her too, but it's kind of like Art's friend. And like right now, just based off Terrifier 2, I don't know if she's real. I don't know if she exists. She might just exist in Art's brain. Don't know. But those two together, like Art, little creepy clown girl dressed up, decked out the same way he is. Awesome. Awesome visuals, awesome chemistry. All in all, they brought a difference to Terrifier 2 from the first one while staying to its roots, but they really brought a lot of differences. I feel like it was very ballsy in a lot of ways for what they went for, and it really paid off, and you love to see it. You just love to see it for Art the Clown and for Terrifier. Because like I've said before, this man is a modern day horror icon for years to come. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But I've been saying that since Terrifier 1, because this man, this creature, this thing, whatever he is an icon. I don't care what anybody says. In this franchise, I want to see it go. I want to see it continue into like a Halloween or like a Friday the 13th where there's like tons of movies. I wouldn't mind because I think he deserves that. So yeah, guys, Terrifier 2 delivered for me. It's my second favorite horror movie of 2022, and I'm very glad to say that because I would have been very disappointed if it wasn't good. But lived up to the hype, lived up to the kills, lived up to Art, and for the future of Terrifier. So that is my number 2, Terrifier 2. So we're boiling down to it. Number 1 of 2022 horror movies for me. I'm sorry guys, it's not an original again. It's another continuation of a series, but it is Scream 5 as my number 1 movie from 2022. So this movie started off the year. It was the first month of the year, January of 2022. Had all the hype in the world because it's a Scream movie. And not only that, but it was the first Scream movie in over a decade. So there's a lot of eyes on this. And looking at it now, looking a year later from the release of Scream 5, the audience is kind of split. I feel like people love it, people hate it. I don't really think there's kind of an in-between. I don't see that as often. I'm sure it has its in-between people, but I basically see like either people love this one or they hate this one. I am definitely on the love train of this movie. I love every single way they continue the Scream story in 5. A decade plus after Scream 4, I loved it. I loved it from all the characters of where they were at in life. I loved the kills they did in this movie. I loved the reveal at the end. I just loved the overall story. I really love the new characters that were introduced in this. And I'll just go by some key elements of what I love so much about Scream 5. First of all, the new cast of characters. I really liked. I thought they were better than a lot of the other Scream movies with the new characters they kind of introduced in the movie or for the movie. I really like these ones. I really like their ties to like some of the originals, some of the OG characters. Like they kind of have like Randy's relatives and stuff like that. Or they even show a guy, I think he's related to Stu. I think he gets killed off in it, but I think he's related to Stu. But they have like family ties. And I really like that, especially they also even have a tribute to Wes Craven as one of the characters. His name is Wes in it. So like I just like everything. I like everything they do with the new characters. Of course, so many people compare characters to the OGs. They compare them to Sidney, Gale, Dewey, Randy, just all of the originals. People compare new characters to, and I'm sure they did it with Scream 4 and the others. You can't do that all the time. You can't always compare. Like these characters for themselves, for what they were in this movie, I thought were great. And I'm honestly pretty excited and happy to see some of them live on to Scream 6 when we get Scream 6 soon. Now let's talk about the OGs. So there's only a few left going into Scream 5. You got Sidney, Gale, and Dewey. You also got characters from like Scream 4 like Deputy Hicks who returns in this, but the 3 OGs in this I'll cover first. For those 3, I thought even though the screen time wasn't as much as some of the prior films, I get it. But for this story and for what they were doing here with the new characters, and how can I forget relatives? Of course, Billy Loomis's daughter is one of them too, who's also tied into the original. Anyways, what they were doing with those OG characters and with the time that when they were on screen, I really liked it. I thought they always served a purpose every time they were on the screen. There was no scenes where they were just pointless with those characters. Every time they were on it, even though not as much, it meant something. It meant something. So yes, I get it. They could have been in it more, sure. But I really liked that every time they were on it, it had a purpose, especially, and I gotta talk about him, Dewey in this movie. God, I gotta say it, guys. So this wasn't even planned. This was kind of just on the fly. My sentences kind of naturally went into this, but I gotta do it. I gotta do it because he earned it. He earned it. Dewey. David Arquette's performance in Scream 5, the Dewey character in Scream 5. I'm about to hit you. With the barn burner of a performance. Because that performance was a barn burner. Dewey is freaking awesome in this movie. I don't care what you say. Like, I'll listen to people who didn't like this movie as a whole. I'll understand that. Even though I don't agree, I'll understand that. You want to crap on Dewey in this movie? Nah. I can't agree with that whatsoever. This guy is perfection in this. Like, he is the perfect version of Dewey that you saw in Scream 1 25 years ago. This version of him in 5 is a perfect version of that character 25 years later, with all of the trauma that he's been throughout all these years. Every time he was on screen, I was so entertained. I was emotionally entertained. I was just entertained in every single way. And I really like how they made him this veteran type of role in this movie. I love how the new characters came to him for advice. I really like how he was like a broken down version of his old self, just not even with the Ghostface stuff, but even his connection with Gale and how they kind of separated and went their own ways throughout life. You see that emotional stuff a lot in the beginning of this movie. And even little stuff like he's got like his ashes of his sister in his room, and he's just very isolated. He's very isolated from the world over this past decade that we haven't seen these characters. And he finally gets that knock on the door, and it's basically these new characters asking him for help. And it's funny to me because just like Randy in the originals, Dewey calls the right answers. Like, when he's giving these new characters advice, he literally guesses who the killers are gonna be. And it's funny because he took notes from Randy in Scream 3 and like wrote stuff down. And I wonder if that's why he got this right. Not only from his own experiences, but what he learned from Randy over the years. We are supplied with some really funny moments that he shares with the new cast of characters, some of the relatives of the people that he was with 25 years later. It's just stuff like that that's really cool. I feel like Dewey just has the most badass, emotional, and funny moments throughout the entire movie. Everything leading up to the big thing that happened in Scream 5, and that is Dewey's death. And let me tell you, I've talked about it a little bit in my Scream ranking video, but let me talk about it again here. And Dewey's death in Scream 5 is, in my opinion, the greatest. I don't think there's a single one better. I think it's the greatest death in horror history. This death was done perfectly, and I really, once again, don't understand how people have issues with this kill and with this death. One thing I get that everyone is saying is how it was Amber who killed him in this scene and she's little or whatever. I don't care, like, whatever. Like, I feel like, for me personally, like, whenever you put on that Ghostface costume in a Scream movie, you got this little bit of extra power to you. It's whatever. To me, that's Ghostface. Like, okay, Ghostface killed Dewey. To me, that's not really an issue for me. Like, everything else they did with this kill and how much emotion it made me feel, I completely forget about that. I don't care about that at all. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But what does matter to me is just the build up to this kill, the kill itself, and the aftermath of it. It's like all stages here. So like at first it's like very badass moment of Dewey here because him with the new cast of characters, he helps save them for the moment. They're leaving. Dewey goes, stop it. I gotta go back to make sure that Ghostface is dead. Gotta shoot him in the head. So he's walking back to Ghostface, and there's just such this awesome visual of him like reloading his gun and stuff while he's walking down the aisle with his boots and everything. Just the shots of it was just awesome. Comes up right to Ghostface, this character that he's known for 25 years. People are doing it again. He sticks up the gun right into Ghostface's face, and the perfect thing just interrupted him, distracted him, that they foreshadowed earlier in the movie. He gets a call from Gale in that moment, and some people have issues with that too. Like, he got distracted. Okay, he got a phone call. He looked at it for a split second. It wasn't like he was gonna pick up the phone and be, oh, hey, let me talk about Ghostface is right here. No, he looked at it for a split second. That was just enough for Ghostface to get the upper hand, stab Dewey, boom. Now he's got him. Now Dewey's struggling. He's got the blood. Ghostface freaking sticks the knives through both sides, pulls up. Blood is literally dripping onto the floor, all over the place. Dewey's by himself with Ghostface. Looks at his phone. Little details like this. Looks at his phone, sees a picture of him and Gale. He smiles a little bit with blood and stuff on his face. Falls backwards, and that is it for Dewey, but also Ghostface here hits Dewey with such a respectable line. If you're gonna kill him, Ghostface says it's an honor. It's an honor to kill this legacy character for this new Scream killer. It was an honor for them to kill this legacy character like Dewey, who's been alive for 25 years in this story. And just, oh man, the way they tributed him here. I know he died and he's my favorite character in all of Scream, but they could have made it a disrespectful death. Like, how can you hate his death? It was so good. It made me feel so much emotion. So you have Ghostface literally kick over this iconic character of 25 years. Just kick him to the ground. Dewey's just laying there, just dead, just dead. He finally got caught after surviving all that craziness throughout the whole franchise. And it's kind of like a surreal moment. I remember seeing this in theater for the first time, and I was just like dead quiet. I was like, no, because I was so worried that was gonna happen, and I was so mad, but like in a good way, because it was so well done. But even after the kill, they went even further with this kill. They made it even more emotional. They had a scene after the kill where Gale shows up to the scene, and Dewey is getting carried out of the hospital in a body bag, and there's this super sad song playing, and it's called Sacrifice from Scream 5, if you want to listen to it. Has this song playing with Gale kind of yelling in slow motion. People are holding her back, and that music is playing with the body bag of Dewey, this person that she has so much history with, that kind of ended on weird terms of not talking really for a decade. You know, they had a little scene earlier in the movie that they talk, and it's a really nice moment, but like, besides that, they didn't really talk for the past decade. They have so much history together. They used to be married together. They've been through this story together and have lived through it together so many times. So you could feel for that character, seeing that with the mixture of music and Dewey there in the body bag after finally getting caught. Guys, there's no other word to say it. It's a barn burner. Don't know how people could hate that kill. I really don't get it. All the other stuff besides the Dewey stuff, I still really love too. Like, they continued throughout the rest of the movie to tribute him. Dewey, Gale, and Sidney did an awesome job at that. And just everything, like, carried out throughout the rest of the movie. I just really enjoyed. I really liked how it was in Stu's house. I really liked the two killers of Richie and Amber. I thought they were really good, and like, especially after like rewatches, because I've rewatched it a couple times in the past year, like twice. And I liked them more each time. Like, I think they were such good killers. Like, they were just really good to me, and a lot better than some of the ones we've gotten in the past. Whole Billy Loomis daughter kind of connection you see throughout this whole movie too. Also, big fan of that stuff. I love all the flashbacks. I love how they brought him back in such a unique way. But they brought back Billy in a unique way. They brought him back in a very unique way. I wonder if Scream 6 could bring back the other person, the other original killer. I wonder if they could do that. I wonder. But yeah, guys, that is my #1 movie of the year. It is Scream 5. It definitely is. I love that movie so much. I can't wait to rewatch it again for a 4th time, 5th time. It's going to be a movie I always love for years to come. The thing with the Scream movies is there's a lot of critics on them because people are always comparing to the original. And they always, like, with new characters, oh, they're not the same, or with new killers, oh, it's not like Billy and Stu. There's always comparisons. There always is with Scream, but you gotta learn to enjoy them for themselves. You gotta learn to enjoy these new characters for what they are. And yes, I want Stu to come back in Scream 6, but if he doesn't, if the other killers and the other characters are strong, I'm completely cool with that. I mean, if they suck, they suck, but if they're good, like how I felt Scream 5 was, they're good. And I just feel like that's just the biggest issue with Scream in the newer movies, that people just too much comparing. But yes, I personally think it would be freaking awesome if Scream 6 has Stu and like a younger disciple of his as like the two killers with like his Stu with like a burnt face. Yeah, that's my biggest dream scenario. But I know that's not the most likely thing in the world, but I'm still excited for Scream 6, one of my favorite movie franchises ever, my second favorite horror franchise ever. So excited for that. But guys, thank you for watching this. Happy New Year to everybody. This is a little tribute to 2022. 2022 was a great year. It was the launch of Horror 31st. I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Horror 31st. Out.